been told by everybody up on this roof that they're all off the roof. I am on the roof of exposure 4. Got fire through the roof of the 5 million, the entire rear section.
Now remember, given the payday, has he been accounted for? Okay.
610B, that was the Mayday, 610B.
I'm here. We got a fire. 1.5-story, single-family dwelling. Fire shown from the second floor. Give me a second alarm on this.
Up to the top floor. I got people hanging out the top floor windows with a baby.
Commercial building. A lot of fire, a lot of smoke. Go ahead and strike a third alarm on my orders on this.
Got people on the front fire escape here with windows vented below them. We need somebody up there.
Yeah, let them know we got a job. I'm pulling up now. Second alarm, I got a 1-story single-family frame. Heavy fire showing from the attic.
So we're using all hands. We got one line stretch, fire to 4th floor. Second line being stretched. Primary searches are underway.
Hey, welcome back to the Command Post, our podcast right here at fireengineering.com. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my buddy Chief John Sulka. And hey, before we jump into our topic here, John, we are all set for FDIC. We'll be doing the 3 degrees of Mayday again on Friday. We always fill the room. It's a classroom session for those going to FDIC. It's become a very popular program in our whole list of topics that we do. And then we're rolling out a new one. It's one we've done a little bit here and there, but we've kind of oofed it and pumped it up a little bit and did some things with it. It's actually a fun class. It's a lot of fun. For those that are in the tactics and strategy, we're going to be doing Organizing the Fireground, a 4-hour workshop on Monday at FDIC. Again, John, this is one of the ones you and I always have fun with all our stuff, but we especially have fun with tactics and strategy and getting out there and this one, buddy, right? We're going to take them from sitting in the firehouse, before the bells even ring. I mean, we're we talking about, seat assignments, ride assignments, tool assignments. What do you carry on your rigs? How much water? How much hose? What kind of nozzles? What do you have for staffing at your career or your volunteer place? How far is the second engine? The truck? Do you run a truck company? All that, yada yada, all that stuff, and then bing, 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 engine, ladder, battalion. Now you're out the door, and now what are you thinking while you're en route? And jump in here, buddy. Some of the things that we should be considering when you pull up when it comes to organizing the fireground, right?
Yep.
I
want to also add back to the Mayday, right? 3 degrees of Mayday. We got to mention there's going to be an empty seat in that class, right?
Yeah, boy, oh boy, Don Abbott. We lost. He would kind of look at you funny if you called him a legend, but he is a legend. He is one of those forevers in the fire service that you think's gonna be forever the fire service. You know what? He will be forever in the fire service. His legacy.
Yep. A very unexpected loss, though. I mean, he wasn't. Obviously, there was something going on, but it was unexpected, and he was a regular presence in a lot of our classes, but particularly in the Mayday class because of his Project Mayday that he created, really, and is still out there, and hopefully lives on.
He left it with over 12,000 Maydays. He had researched. He gave you and I the data, the numbers that we needed.
Make the points for our class, right?
Oh, exactly. We how many times we were sitting there saying, lunar doesn't really work well, and don't change channels in the middle of a Mayday and all that. He gave us the data. He gave us the statistics to be able to say, see, this is why you don't do that stuff. So, yeah, there'll be an empty seat in the 3 degrees of Mayday because we were always able to turn to him and go, Don, what do you think? And
he was always right there in the front row,
and he would shake his head no or yes or he would jump in there. But what a great guy! What a great guy! So, but. So Don will be missed. God bless you, Don. Thank you for everything. We love you, buddy. 3 degrees of Mayday on Friday. And then, like I said, Monday, the workshop, Organizing the Fireground. Like I was getting towards, you get there, everything you should be doing, and it's not just I'm riding the front seat and I have to do this, I'm done. We're gonna work through the entire incident. It's a fun class. We're hoping you can attend it, but it's just that, Organizing the Fireground. What you need to be successful in your fire attack. And again, pre-assignment, en route, arrival, the whole incident and then picking up at the end. So we hope we can see you. And we'll be doing after hours with Chief Bobby Halton and Bill Gusset and Chief John Norman on Wednesday evening, like we do a bit, buddy, in front of
that's always
several
fun.
thousand. Yeah. So we'll be there. We're looking forward to seeing you in April at FDIC in Indy. It's going to be another great show. And I got to ask you, what are you up to? About 9 grandkids now? I mean, 9 or 10 grandkids. I mean, the Salkas are the families.
No, it seems like I was complaining just a short time ago. Layla is 3, so it was 3 years ago we got Layla, and since then we get 2 more, and there's another one coming. So we'll have 4 sometime in February, hopefully. So that was we're very, as everyone else is. You can only smile when you talk about grandchildren, right? We're very pleased. Maureen is right in the neighborhood, so we see Mateo regularly. Actually, we see him a lot, which is great. Johnny's a little bit farther away, and then of course, Brian and Rachel are out in Kansas, but we get to see everybody now and then, so it's great.
Well, I thought the other day when I saw the picture of Mickey Conboy, our good friend Mickey, and him and his wife sitting on the couch with 8. His voice started banging them out right away. It's a great picture. So, hey, let's jump into our topic here today. You and I the other day were talking on the phone, and like we always say, we pride ourselves on the fact that we don't have a script. We don't work for a little predetermined, written out agenda script thing. We just kind of roll with the flow. I told somebody the other day, they go, so you guys really don't, you just kind of talk it. So that's what I like about it. I go, well, yeah. I said, I'll call John. We'll jump on together, and I'll go, so what do you want to talk about? He'll look at me. He'll go, let's talk about the K-tool. And we'll do 35 minutes on the K-tool. Or how about we talk about the veteran search, that tail, or the OV's position. Or let's talk about.
Listen, we're nothing special. We've said that 1,000 times, right? If you're a firefighter or you're an officer or you're an instructor, with any time at all, you should be able to you should be either experienced enough or well-trained enough on a bunch of topics that you should be able to sit down at a kitchen table or get on a phone with somebody or whatever. You should be able to talk for 35 or 40 minutes about any one topic that you know about. And obviously, there's a lot of stuff to know. It's not like there could be a test where I could just drop a topic on you and make you talk about it. But the average firefighter should be able to talk about forcible entry tools or hose loads or turnout gear or SCBA or ladders, the stuff that we deal with every day. And I've always said that. People say, how do you do it? Like you just started to say, because we're talking about stuff that we know about. You don't have to prepare. You don't have to prepare a lecture. You don't have to prepare a PowerPoint program on forcible entry. If you know forcible entry, you'll be able to explain it without props, without pictures, without an axe in your hand. You'll be able to say, when you have an axe, you get the blade down here and you get you should be able to talk about it very clearly when you understand stuff. And that's the benefit of being well-trained and understanding all this stuff is you can share it with each other and debate it with each other and talk about it without a big prep period,
Well, we talked years ago and brought it up during a couple of our classes, even actually recently about, I used to tell people that, when they say, well, I don't know what to train on, there's nothing to train on or whatever. I'm like, what are you talking about? There's a pumper out there. And I did it. I actually did it to make a point, when I was a trained officer that, I was like, well, wait a minute, I could give you 2 drills a week for over a year on that pumper and not duplicate one drill.
Right.
And I still would have ideas.
Without going to a book.
Exactly. I mean, oh my holy God, there's a ton of stuff out there. But so that being said, one of the things that you and I were talking about the other day was like one of your guys coming up to you with an idea. We've talked about the balancing act of, encouraging, new ideas from the rank and file, but not getting to that's a great thing, but it also could be a boat anchor sometimes because there's a lot of great idea people out there that have a whole lot of great ideas, but have nothing to, it's like, hey, I've got like 5 ideas, Chief. Okay, which one are you going to work on? Oh, I don't have the time. Well, who has the time? There's a lot of great idea people, but there's no follow-up.
That's the eternal problem, not just in the fire service, even friends and people that we know that are in other industries and other walks of life say the same thing. People come in all the time to the monthly, to the monthly managers meeting and say, hey, why don't we do this? And they'll say, you know what? Why don't you stop in at one of the one of the next meetings when we have the staff, and you'll see why we don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, thanks for the idea, though. Of course, it's important that we still, that we still welcome new ideas, and you always want somebody to come in with a new idea. Whether we can get it done or not is another story. But
well, yeah, again, what you got to. What you have to do is strike a balance between encouraging new ideas and stifling the enthusiasm. You don't want to stifle. Sometimes there's a little bit of finesse that has to go along with, how do you tell someone, no, not right now, without them walking away going, well, every time I bring it up, because there are some guys, I remember that in Louisville, guys would come in and I'm like, that's a great idea. We can't do it. We don't have the money right now, or when you're sitting there running a fire department and you're trying to plan your agenda out, not everything fits right in there, or you can't, it's like, okay, where do we insert this one? It's so there's the balancing act on your administrative people, your command staff, on how to figure out where to put all that stuff in.
Oh, and then of course there's the fact that some people come in with an idea. A guy with 5 years on the job comes in and says, hey, why don't we use this kind of nozzle instead of that kind of nozzle? You know what? 6 years ago, right before you got in here, we tried those nozzles. We bought 2 of them. We did tests, we did fires, didn't work out so well. So a great idea, but we've been there, done that,
Exactly. So, we were talking about, and I'm going to say it out loud. With Brian, your son, working in Wichita, we actually did a show for our listeners. We did a show, if you've been following us, one of our podcasts. I'm not sure if it was this one with the Command Post or on Old School, about why we always talk about Stockton, California, Wichita, Kansas, and like Louisville, Texas, and that. And we talk about them because they have their shit together and they're into the job and they're into their tools, they're into their stuff. And you and I, it's just fun because we'll go places, and I'm going to pick on Wichita here for a moment because we've been exposed to a little bit more of it because of Brian working there. There's some great, the ideas are going, holy cow, I've been doing this a long ass time, and I never thought of that. And John,
I can't get over it. You're right.
I joke all the time. Ben Franklin started the fire service, the volunteer fire service, 1736, the first organized volunteer fire company. And the only reason we've went from that to where we're at today, which is incredible, is because people have come up with ideas. And I did something. We have our good friend, we celebrated his birthday the other day, Steve Chikarotis, right? Retired deputy district chief for Chicago.
I sent him a nice message.
Yeah, Dee, especially you being a professional actor, having been on Chicago Fire. It's Steve and we both love him. I love Steve. DDC, a deputy district chief of Chicago, technical advisor for anything fire related on television, and especially out of Chicago, movies. But I'll tell you, we're both fans of Backdraft. My wife Jamie was in Backdraft. My best man and his wife at our wedding, Ray Hoff is one of the two real Backdraft brothers. Very, amazing. Very Ray Hoff, miss him. We're very partial to that movie. But I did a blog a while back that generated a lot of talk because a lot of people, when you review the articles, I told you if I'm reviewing an article of fire engineering and I see somebody say, it's been said 1,000 years of tradition, unimpeded. I'm like, if you can't even get the line from Backdraft right, how do I know your article's right or accurate? And it's not even a line. It was a sheet of paper on a wall in a firehouse in that movie Backdraft that said, the Chicago Fire Department, 150 years of tradition, unimpeded by progress. Now, you and I both know this. The Chicago Fire Department is one of the most progressive, aggressive, one of the great fire departments out there. But a lot of my career is based on what I learned from my mentors and the legends in the Chicago Fire Department. And to this day, they're an aggressive, progressive fire department. So I did a little blog, John, 150 years of tradition, unimpeded by progress, the ultimate insult. And it wasn't towards, and I even mentioned, it wasn't towards Chicago, because I love Chicago. Like I said, they're full of great guys, great firefighters, great officers. And I'll say it again, they're an extremely progressive fire department. You can learn a ton of stuff from Chicago's guys.
And that's the positive. That's the positive definition of progressive. Now that we're in the political season, okay.
Yeah, exactly. So that being said, but I'm like, wait a minute, 150 years of tradition unimpeded by progress, really? So let's walk out onto your apparatus floor and look at the fire engines, ladder trucks, and heavy rescues and the technology put into apparatus today. Really, let's look at the portable radio in your hand. Let's look at your pager. Let's look at how we get dispatched now via telephones and CAD systems. And let's talk about paramedicine. We have paramedics drilling into bones to start IVs nowadays. Really 150 years of tradition on POI progress. Well, and I what I was pointing out was I understand, and it was a funny line, but what people don't get is that wasn't a message of they're not actually it's a message that they are progressive. It's kind of one of those, yeah, right. Like when you look at when you look at somebody say, oh, he's a rocket scientist. He actually is a rocket scientist. That's the thing. You say, oh, 150 years of tradition on POI progress. The Chicago Fire Department is chock full of tradition, incredible, cool things about the fire service, but they're an extremely progressive department. I used to say Louisville is a very traditional fire department, full of progress. Very progressive.
Right, and you know what? And there's a misunderstanding out there in the fire service, and again, lots of other industries where you can still be traditional and have a lot of history that you hold on to, and still be progressive and forward thinking and everything else. I mean, it's not like you can only be one or the other.
Exactly. So that was the point with that was, I love the movie. We're all fans of Backdraft and stuff. And again, I think people look at that poster and they think it's haha. Well, like I said, that's the same thing. Like I said before, he or she's a rocket scientist. Well, you know what they are? They're pretty smart. Well, the Chicago Fire Department, yes, is extremely progressive, and they're one to model a lot of your techniques, your tactics after if you want to be successful. It's a great department. But that gets us to, John, like I said, how we've evolved in the fire service to where we're at today. You and I, have, golly, man, we're getting into just under 100 years of experience in the fire service. Look at all the things we've seen in our careers that have changed. I
remember when they were putting in them wooden fire mains, so we could have water out in the outside.
I've got one sitting behind me right here on my desk.
But really, all kidding aside, imagine back then when they were doing that. Somebody was probably saying, holy crap, Chief, this is unbelievable. This is groundbreaking. We're going to have water pumped out to the other areas of the little village. We can just dig down to the pipe and get water. This is great. Wherever you are, I tell that story all the time about the pictures, right? You go to a firehouse, any firehouse, yours included, you see some old pictures on the wall. Not old pictures from 1972, old pictures from maybe the 1800s or the early 1900s if you're in a big department or an old department, right? And you see the guys there with the black rubber coats and the old leather helmets with the big eagle on top and maybe a horse-drawn apparatus in the background. And you're saying to yourself, wow, them poor guys, that must have been rough. They had nothing. And those guys, on that day when that picture was taken, that was the most modern day in fire service history. They were saying to themselves, that's right, baby, we got these rubber coats now. No more going in there with them pea coats and getting soaking wet. And they were thinking, look at this. We get the fastest horses in the city right here. We are the cat's butt. You know what I'm saying? It's true. And anywhere you are, like right now, we are at the height of technology. And 20 years from now, there's going to be some kids laughing at some of the stuff that we're doing right now because some of it will go away. Some of it will stay. Some of it will develop. Some of it will fade away. And obviously some new stuff will emerge.
You mean you guys didn't fly to fires? How did you get there? What did it take you? 4 minutes to get there?
Tires?
Yeah.
Cotton jacketed or whatever. Nylon jacket and hose, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, you just said it. You've always said that was the most progressive and, smartest, newest technology thing at that moment. And so, yeah, somebody came in and said, hey, I got an idea. All this, how we have to pump by hand. I got an idea how we can use steam, to do that for, you see it, the guys is, go ahead.
I'm always amazed at in the FDNY, and I'm sure it's true in every other city that, it's got old firehouses. There's one or two firehouses in New York City. 15 Engine is one of them. I'm sure there's a couple here and there. Maybe no, 235 is it? That's a different situation. I'm always amazed that we have these 100-year-old firehouses that have bay doors that a 110-foot Seagrave rear mount area ladder can back in and out of. And when they built it, there was horses and a pumper in there and a steam engine.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that they built those doors, they weren't building them there. You know what? We better build them wide because eventually they're going to have big, motorized apparatus here. They built those doors, and somebody had the foresight. It's not like half of them. All of them are wide enough to put gigantic fire trucks in. Who thought of that? They had this little horse-drawn steam engine to pull in and out of there, you know?
Well, and again, like you said, it's like, who knew where people were going? How many people have sat down and said, I mean, could you imagine the guy that sat down and said, the military uses this, like this means, this science for me. They can see through stuff. They can detect like heat and things. And what if we brought that in the fire service? And guys like, get out of here. You're out of your freaking mind. What are you talking? And now we went from what Karen's with having a thermal imager, attached to your helmet. And I hear, John, you get the helmet today or for this run for a tick, to now they're about the size, of a credit card.
And a pack of cigarettes. They're like a little flashlight. They're like those little mini flashlights now.
Oh, exactly. And so everything from when we talk, I guess, we're talking about encouraging the new ideas, but and also talking about the balancing act of what's too much and what's too little. But I said this the other day in a class. I did my history class, and I Freebrew Cooper out by us, and I brought up, eventually I get to the Halligan tool, and I go, here's a guy, and Chief Hugh Halligan from the 18th Battalion, by the way, my buddy's battalion, John Salka, that said, this tool we're using right now, guys, I know it's good and all this, but God, man, this thing's so heavy, and guys are getting hurt using it. And what if we took, like somebody came up with the idea for the Swiss Army knife too. Somebody came up and said, I got an idea for a knife that's going to have a screwdriver. It's going to have a toothpick. It's going to have scissors. It's going to have, get out of here.
There were people saying, get lost and go and mop the floor,
Exactly. And here, Hugh Halligan came up with an idea for a tool that is still today the most prominent and best force entry tool available. And it's a chunk of metal.
But you got to give credit where credit's due. Hugh Halligan didn't invent the Halligan. He modified existing tools. There was a great article just recently about the true story about the Halligan. And the guy who wrote the article, I'm embarrassed to say I can't remember where I read it. I read so many things either online or in magazines. But just recently, a guy wrote it. It was an excellent article. And he, uncovered all the history, from the claw tool, which was the one immediately before the Halligan tool, and who developed each one, and then the K tool, and then, all the different tools that were developed. Actually, there's a lot of Halligans out there that still say the K tool company on the fork, because similar people worked on them. But you're right. Hugh Halligan took, the claw tool, which had the fork just sort of like a Halligan, but the other end was a big, gigantic hook. It almost looked like a farm tool. You know what I'm saying? And he modified it and came up with the Halligan, which has still persevered. The actual Halligan in many different forms is still, like you just said, probably the most used and the most consistent tool in the fire service.
Oh.
Volunteer, career, paid, big department, small department. Yeah.
Oh, and look at everything we do, John. Everything. So for those that sometimes stifle ideas, understand this. Look around your firehouse. Look at everything you're holding, touching, staring at, walking on, walking through, riding in, everything. Somebody came up with that idea. We were talking the other day about we're into cancer prevention finally, which is huge. But we talk about we're about 2 great ideas away from the clean cab concept, which I think we're even down to 1 now. We're so close to where we'll have something that work. Actually, I don't think there'll ever be one program that'll work for everybody. It's got to be regional because some places have winters and some don't.
Winter.
Look at winter. Look at how rapid intervention has evolved, John. You and I, when we first started talking RIT, people used to laugh at us. They used to go, really? You're actually gonna have guys? You tell me that we're gonna have a couple guys standing outside, just standing here, while everybody else fights the fires? There's other things you can do, but everything. When you and I start teaching Get Out Alive is saving our own,
Jump out the window head first down the ladder. That's not safe.
Exactly. You go back and you think about all these different things. I wrote the first article, on the first RIT bag. And I remember Diane from Fire Engineering going, we want you to do an article about the bag, this bag. I go, it's a bag. She goes, I know. I go, but it's a bag. She goes, I know. I want you to do an article on the bag. Never in my wildest dreams that I go, look at this. But
here's another little example. And again, you can measure these examples against each other, and some of the products and some of the tactics and some of the ideas are not much greater, but have much greater use in the fire service than others. But it's another 48 engine story. So I'm the new captain of 48 engine, and I'm learning the place, and I'm learning the rig, and I'm learning the guys. And Willie Tracy, who I talk about all the time, Willie recently passed away, broke my heart. Great guy. He was my chauffeur, and one day, we're looking at the rig, or we're opening a compartment, or I'm walking past, and he's doing something, and the compartment door is open. It's the compartment door on the driver's side, on the chauffeur's side, right behind the pump panel. And he's got it open, and in there is some fittings and some this and some nozzles and et cetera, et cetera. But on the door, actually on the compartment door that swings out, mounted on the door are like 4 separate or 5 separate adapters, all painted different colors. One is green, one is red, one is yellow, one is blue. I'm like, what is with the reading rainbow here? What's with all the colors? He said, oh, Cap, those are adapters for all the cities north of the Bronx. The Yonkers is the green one here, and then there were the 3 or 4 of the other cities up there, which normally I could remember, and I'm not remembering. But there's 3 or 4 of the paid departments up there that we and as 48 engine occasionally get called up there, not individually. If they have a second alarm, sometimes they call some companies from the city, and that was his idea. That was somebody's idea right there in the company. Hey, let's get those adapters, let's put them on the rig, and let's mount them on the door and paint them different colors. And of course, right above each one, it said Yonkers, et cetera, et cetera. So you got there. There was no like, oh my God, we need fittings here. Yeah, dig through the box. They're in there somewhere. No, somebody else had the idea of mounting them, color coding them, and labeling them, which was a great idea. Very simple, but talk about saving time when you get to a fire somewhere, right? You don't go up mutual aid to watch. You go up mutual aid to work. When you get there, there's very little time to start looking for stuff.
Oh, exactly. And we had the same thing. Bedford Park with Chicago surrounding us, where they weren't national standard. They were Chicago pipe thread. So we had to have the second fittings and be able to know where they're at. I mean, the idea people, and John, you've heard me talk about, we're talking about encouraging new ideas. So the city of Louisville took all their swimming pools years ago, and they turned them in. They did a 4B tax thing, and they redid all the things with parks, updated all the parks, the playground equipment, the walking tracks. And they took the city swimming pools and they turned them into water parks, which was great for the kids. But for our 56 divers, it took our ability really to train our divers, when there weren't people swimming in the pool, because we were also beholding to, well, wintertime they shut the pools down, and during the summer you can't do it because there's people there. You have to get there like at 7 a.m. and do like an hour before they open up the pool. We were you had to insert your time perfectly to get in there, but you couldn't just do it all the time. So we were beholden to the city pool system. And I'm having coffee at our main dive station, Station 2. And I'll never forget this. Captain Kevin Bruley, we're talking. He goes, Chief, and he points out the window, John. You've heard me tell this story a bunch of times. He goes, why can't we put us a built-in swimming pool right there in the only grassy area behind Station 2? Everything else is parking lot and buildings. Why can't we put us a built-in swimming pool for our divers to train in, deep one? And I went, and I just smiled. I said, no, Kevin, no, we're not. No, I said, I am not going to look. We've asked for a lot of stuff here in Louisville, and we've got it. I am not going in front of the city council, in front of God and everybody on television for the whole city to watch me, a couple of thousand people, and make an ass out of myself and go, can we get a built-in swimming pool for behind the firehouse? I was joking with the floaty chairs, and the barbecue grill.
And just one diving board, yeah.
Right. He's going to do the triple Lindy, but no, can we do that? And I'm sorry, Mr. Councilman, what? No, what does it cost? Oh, about $60,000. No, I don't think anybody else has one. I said, you're out of your pea-picking mind if you're going to make a jackass out of myself and ask for that. So I did. And as we know, here we are today. Station 2 has a large built-in 15-foot deep, but it's a great swimming pool, black pebble tech, so it kind of stays dark. it's deep enough where you can pop your ears if you need to, clear your ears. Not popping is the bad thing to talk about divers, to clear your ears. You could, the props, you could have zero and reduced visibility. And I told people, I said, when people go, ha, they look and they smile and they laugh, I go, you would never put a firefighter in a burning building without putting him or her through what first? A smoke tower. I said, the difference between black water diving, which is what our guys do with zero visibility, and crawling in a burning building is one word, and it starts with the letter G, gravity. When you crawl around, you know where you're at on the ground in the building. You're diving, you can't see your bubbles, you get disoriented, you could be in a world of poop in a heartbeat, stress-related, strokes, all this different stuff, so on and so forth. So all that things to do is keep one of our divers alive. So that was one idea, you know what I'm saying?
Talk about a great idea. That wasn't, hey, let's get a Hurst tool, or hey, let's get a new set of irons, or that's a gigantic expense, putting a pool into place. And even though the idea was initially, you already explained your ideas when he initially said it, you were like, yeah, right. But it ended up being reality, That's
exactly.
A lot of ideas. That'd be interesting to look at. And for our listeners, you could probably do the same thing. You could probably say, you know what? Yeah, that reminds me of when the guys wanted to build the substation. What, are you kidding me? We're fine with the one station. We've been here for 65 years with one station. We don't need a substation. Yeah, but you know what? The south end of town now with those railroad tracks, and it's starting to build up down there. No, get out of here. And before you know it, 5 years later, they're breaking ground for a new substation. A lot of ideas, a lot of good ideas. The first reaction, even from the legitimate, sober, fire chiefs, right? Sometimes the initial reaction is, get out of here. And then they start thinking about it. Then they start looking into it. And before you know it, sometimes the craziest idea. So sometimes the first reaction to an idea is, in fact, not what ends up happening. Sometimes it ends up turning into a real suggestion that becomes reality.
Well, and John, I'll give that example. When he said it inside, I was going, this is a great idea. But outside, I'm going, there's no way. I'm trying to buy 2 sets of gear for everybody and do this and do that. I'm like, and I'm going to go ask for a pool. Man, oh man. So here's another one. You've heard me say this one. I'm sitting in my office one day, and there's a knock at the door, and there's a young firefighter with his captain standing. He goes, Chief, do you have a second? So yeah, sure, come on in. And he goes, look, Chief Wells said I could come in and talk to you. I'm like, okay, so you want to know that he's following the chain of command, right? He's in there with his captain. And I'm like, yeah, this is this whole where you talk about, everybody's approachable. We talk about the great bosses are approachable, but the most important part of being approachable is being open-minded. There's a lot of people are approachable, but they're not open-minded. So he comes in and he says, you got to say so. So he sits down, I said, what's up? He goes, Chief, I know you're into the history of the fire service. He goes, why are there 50-foot couplings on the hand lines? I know that our LDH is 100, but he goes, why are there 50-foot? There's got to be a reason. I go,
why is hose in 50-foot sections? Right.
Yeah, 50-foot sections. And I said, I don't know. I know why there's 200-foot cross lays on most rig, 200-foot pre-connects. That's a whole, that was an whole ISO thing. That was actually that the 200-foot pre-connect cross lay thing was most cities from the street curb to the alley garage was 150 feet. Most were zoned at 150 feet to alley garage. So a 200-foot pre-connect could get you to the garage and get you around the garage, any of the exposures. Back that up, it could get you into a 1, 2, 3-story building between the garage and the street. I said, I know that, but no, I don't know why there's a coupling every 50 feet, or like you said, 50-foot lengths. And I go, why? He goes, well, that house fire we had this morning, he goes, I was healing, and you and I've talked about that on another show, a position that is very much underrated, that is absolutely critical, the heel man on the hose. He says, I'm pulling, and Tommy's in there with Cap Swindle in there, and they're yelling, the cab's yelling for more hose, and I'm trying to pull it. I'm in the living room. And John, those little boot scrapers you have next to your back door that you scrape like the mud or the snow off your boots? Yep. Well, there was one of those right next to the back stoop where they went in through the side stoop, actually.
Where they went. For those of you that are listening, the stoop is the steps going up.
So this particular entrance is actually the front of the house. Okay, if you look at it. So anyway, so they go in through that door, and he says that coupling slid off the stoop, and where that boot scraper was, right next to it, the little gap, it was like the coupling locked behind it. It fell behind it, and I'm pulling. He goes, it seems like the first set of couplings always get hooked up on something. He goes, why do we need them? So I looked at Tim Tittle, my ops chief. My partner. I looked, and Tim goes, I guess we're fixing to order some 100-foot lengths. And we've never looked back. So all the cross lays and the skid loads from the nozzle back, the first 100 feet of hose are not 250s, it's a 100-footer. What did we get rid of? We got rid of the couplings. And you know what a lot of people do, like they do in Wichita and other places? They order their hoses. They either mark them or they order them already marked. You can do that if you have the money. So you know where the 50 or 100 foot, where that demarcation line is if you're looking to load your hose. What a great idea, John, with a
from a brand new guy.
Oh.
From a brand new guy who was just trying to solve a simple problem. Damn, the hose keeps getting hung up. It's always that coupling right there.
How many times have you heard this? How many ideas do you think have been stifled because someone said, like you said, get out of here, kid. You know what? Come see me when you've got a couple years at a job, not a couple minutes, that kind of stuff. This is a brand new firefighter. We've changed SOPs and SOGs. We've remodeled stations. We've moved hose. Guys have come in. Your guys went through it at your volunteer department, South Blooming Grove. You talk about you came in one night, and what are you doing? Well, we want to move this off of this wall and put it over here. And at first, I remember you telling me, you're like, oh, they were just. I'm like, look, this has worked just fine. And then you went, actually, that's a good idea,
Right.
and they did it. I mean,
and I'm the guy. Whether I'm the captain of a company or whether I'm the chief, I'm the guy that when I first hear the idea, I'm saying to myself, get the hell out of here. To myself, I wouldn't say that to somebody. But so I've learned the lesson myself many times, and then later on that night I get home, or later on that night I'm upstairs sitting down, laying down, reading, whatever. And I'm like, you know what? That ain't. Or I'll go upstairs and I call you. Or I go upstairs and call Chris Delisio and say, you know what? A guy just made a suggestion to me. What do you think about this? And I tell him, he's like, holy crap, Chief, that's a pretty good idea. I never heard of that one. And also I'm like, hey, buddy, come here. Listen, I thought about that idea you gave me, and we're going to look into it,
Well, and you're right. Not every idea is something you can jump on. It's about timing. It's sometimes about funding. Sometimes it's about seeing it through, because there's a lot of half-finished projects in firehouses that was a great idea that somebody started with. They ran out of gas, and now it's just sitting there, So as a boss, we can't take that away from those that are running the show, the chief officers or the company officers that are going, look, and they walk around, they go, see this and see that, and see that was Tommy Jones' idea, that was Cynthia Smith's idea, that was all this stuff that's started but not finished, because there was no follow through, if you will. So we can't take that away from the leadership within the department going, yeah, we've had a lot of great, so the balancing, I guess, John, is, how do you make sure that there is follow through? How do you make sure they see the project through, so you don't have a handful of half-started things over here, yet you don't stifle the people that, because you don't want guys, we've both been there. God, no one will listen to me. I come up with ideas all the time, and they just tell me, get the hell away from me, Lasky, get away from me, Salka. So how do you strike that balancing act? You were in the 18th Battalion. You had your own fire department as the battalion commander. You had
Right.
your stations, and then a bunch of different times being the chief of South Blooming Grove, great volunteer fire department. Especially there, tons of brand new young firefighters coming in with ideas. What method did you use, if there was a method? How did you strike the balancing act between what is a good idea and what is not possible versus,
Right. I mean, luckily you're not getting like 5 ideas a day every day. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They come in now and then, so it's not usually a torrent of ideas, But you're right. How about the idea of a suggestion box? Now there's a good idea that some places have, fire departments and other places, a suggestion box. Now there's always the a-hole that drops some stupid stuff in there every day. Every day he writes something else, and it's the same guy. But once in a while you look through that, like on drill night or on Monday morning when you come in, you're like, whoa, there's a good idea. And what that does is it takes away the personal connection. So here's a guy with 5 years on the job, loves the job, he's well liked in the firehouse, and he has an idea that he doesn't think is going to go over very well, and he writes it down, and he slides it in that box. Now somebody's looking at it, and they don't know that it's Billy Campbell. They don't know that it's one of the guys that they either like or maybe the guy that's really not so beloved. You know what I'm saying? And now you can look at these ideas and say, hey, whoever put the idea in about getting the LDH or getting rid of the LDH, come by the office. We think it's a pretty good idea. And before you know it, the guy slides in one night and says, hey, Chief, that was me. I put it in, and all of a sudden you got a good. So the suggestion box is not a bad idea either in some fire departments, because it takes away the personal connection. And some guys are afraid to make a connection because if it's rejected or deemed to be silly or get the hell out of here, it connects to them. So they don't want to do it.
Well, yeah, it takes it provides a much more objective process, because the young guy or gal that might be nervous about bringing up an idea, or there are some bullies in the fire service that you sit down, shut up, don't say nothing.
Right.
I don't know. I think the fire service is a pretty special place full of pretty special people, but sometimes we have a way of stifling some good things because it's
there's imbeciles everywhere. We know that, and that's, in politics and industry and in the fire service, even the best fire department, Louisville, FDNY, even the greatest fire departments, if you look long and hard enough and go into the darkest room where there's just somebody sitting there sleeping or doing nothing on the couch, there he is. And he's got a brother and a cousin in fire departments all across the country. But you're right. For the most part, the larger number of people, the fire service is full of great people. How about Mark Wesseldine?
Yes.
I mean, I just say the name Mark Wesseldine. It's a guy that was in 58 truck, fantastic firefighter, volunteer up in Rockland County where he lived. He's retired after 9/11 and now lives out in Colorado. I believe he's a fire chief out there, an assistant chief. Talk about one of the sharpest guys I ever met. He'd come up after a job up to the battalion office, knock on the door. Hey, Chief, you got a minute? Yeah, sure, Mark. What's up? And also he'd say, listen, I know. And all of a sudden we'd be talking about, now it could even be something with the engine, because he was a well-rounded guy. Even though he was a truck firefighter, he knew a lot about engines and hose and training and stuff, because he was a trainer, or on the side. And he would come up and say, you know what? Every time I see the engine doing that, it's always getting caught. Why do we have that? Why do we have that nozzle mounted on the back step in that corner there? Every time we have a stretch of line off the chauffeur side, that tool shouldn't be there anymore. I know I'm not in the engine, but why don't you talk to the captain of the engine about that? And before you know it, the idea turns out to be valid. Mark Wesseldine was a great guy, never afraid to come up with a suggestion or an opinion on something, and certainly was well deserved as well. He had a lot of experience and knew what he was doing.
Well, and you got to strike that balance between what's too much, what's too little. You can end up with system overload too, or you can end up with about 5 different projects going and nobody getting stuff done. And I guess, John, that's where, as we're moving to close this one out, is you want to encourage your people. You want to, as a boss, you want to seek input. You want to ask people, guys, what should we be doing better? How can we be better at what we're doing? How can we deliver a better service? How can that fire engine, that ladder truck, that rescue, the ambulance, whatever, how can we make it better? You and I have seen it. I joke about in class. I'll go to firehouses and go, who designed this firehouse? This firehouse, nothing here makes sense for firefighters. I've been in firehouses that the day room, kitchen, lounge area, break room area is not even connected to the apparatus bay. You got to run through hallways to get out to the
right.
rigs.
And if you didn't know where you're going, you could be lost or go the wrong way. You come out the bathroom. Right.
Yeah, the room you spend the most time in until you go to bed. And then you talk about the bunk rooms that are not even close to. You can always tell when a fire chief that's disconnected from their people specs a firehouse, designs it, because nothing dumps out onto the floor. It's not as you go in there and go, I'm an outsider. How would I get to the rig from here? Same thing with the engines and ladders. Now, sometimes there are chiefs out there that have to be part of the spec committee because they're the most experienced and they've done it, especially in a volunteer operation. But then you see fire engines and ladder trucks. You go, what were you thinking? And they go, well, we didn't really have input. The chief wanted to do it. And I'm like, the chief don't ride the rig anymore. So as a boss, you got to strike that balance of how much input do you have, versus allowing the troops. But when you don't allow people to come to you with ideas, now I will say this when I talk about system overload, John, you experience this both in 18th Battalion, but especially in South Blooming Grove, with a bunch of young firefighters, great young firefighters coming to you, bombarding you with different ideas. You want the ideas, but the guys coming with the ideas have to understand sometimes you can't go, yes, do it right now. You sometimes there's about 15. I realized this when I made chief, and I'm not making excuses for fire chiefs, but I guess I'm making excuses for fire chiefs. Sometimes you got to cut the boss some slack. You have no idea what's going on in that office. You have no idea what's going on with City Hall. You have no idea what's going on with personnel issues and so on and so forth. And they've got a couple projects already underway, and somebody comes in with 9 more projects. You don't want to curb the enthusiasm, but at the same time, how do you sometimes guys take it the wrong way. Oh, they don't want to listen to us, or they don't want. No, they do, and they are listening to you. But you said it earlier. You don't want to say, yeah, we already talked about that. We thought we couldn't do it, because there's always a means to get it done. It's a finesse, a timing issue, whatever that you've got to look at. And I'll just say this, on the volunteer side, there's a lot of volunteer chief officers, whether it's chief, assistant chiefs, whatever. They got families and jobs and careers and kids doing stuff, and they're trying to run things as the boss as it is. How many times, John? Go ahead.
I bring it up now because you just said it about the guys that bring up something and like they want you to do it like right now. A couple of times before I finished my term as chief, Will Morris is one of the engine officers. Great young kid, very busy, trains everybody, really, 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 really into it. He's around all the time, makes all the meetings and all the drills. Anyway, he comes up to me one time, and he's always either researching or watching or looking at stuff. He comes up with ideas that he sees somewhere else, right? He comes up and he says, "Hey, Chief, I want to show you something." And we open up the crew compartment door on the American LaFrance engine on the officer side. And when you step up there, the way we have it, when you step up in there, the first seat is a backwards facing seat with the SCBA bracket in it. And opposite it, directly opposite it, is just a fold down seat. That's up. It's spring loaded up. Then there's 2 seats in the middle with the SCBA and an SCBA. And then on the other side, it's the same thing, a backward facing seat at the edge and where the window is, and opposite him, a fold down seat. He said, "How about we take this fold down seat out?" He said, "There's no SCBA. This is really not a riding position." He said, "I would love to mount the can and a set of irons and the K-tool right here for the guy who's sitting in this seat. He doesn't have to get out and go to a compartment because there's not a lot of other room up here." I looked at it. I said, "Right there." I said, "Good idea. Do it." He said, "Really?" I said, "Absolutely. Go ahead and do it." I'm telling you, that night when I went home, it was done. It was done. Jib drilling, putting the brackets up. They had everything assembled already, meaning they had the bracket, they had this, they had that. And you know what? To this day, nobody even misses that little fold-down seat there, except the guys that like to ride in it and look forward, But it was a wasted spot that they just put a fold-down seat, and he found a better use of that area from seeing it somewhere else. And I looked at it. They already had the tools. They were just mounted somewhere else, and it was a good idea, and we went with it. So, you can't do that all the time, obviously. And if you're in a big fire department where there's really a big chief somewhere and you're just the captain of a company, you might not be able to do that, although some places do,
Well, again, it's there's so many great ideas out there. To the boss, I guess if I could wrap things up on my end, and then I'll ask you the same thing. To the bosses out there, encourage the ideas. When guys go to classes, they're going to classes to learn stuff. They're going there to get invigorated, to get fired up about the job. They're not going to classes going, "God, whatever you do, don't go back and bring any ideas back to your fire department." They're gaining experience and lessons and coming up with ideas and all kinds of things, So encourage your people to go to classes. Encourage them to come back with some ideas. That's how we progress in the fire service. On the other side, if you're one of the idea guys or gals coming back, remember that, there's a lot of stuff going on in that office that you don't know about. There's a lot of things that people, there's some bosses that are on the career side that are turning and wearing out their staff, going, "Okay, here's another project you got to oversee. Go find the money for this. Go budget this. Let's go to City Hall and fight for this. Let's go do this," or whatever. Or, you know what? We're going to have to move money out of this fund to fund this project. Well, wait a minute. Well, you know what?
Right. Oh, we're not buying that second Hearst tool because I just got another idea. We're going to buy this thing over here instead.
Yeah. So, I mean, so on the career side, it's not just run out, it's not run out to the money well and dip down and bring us back some more money. Let's go do this. Sometimes you got to move funding around, so there's a lot of little curves in the road that you have to maneuver and manage to make that new idea work in the first place. On the volunteer side, you know, we've talked about recruitment and retention, and how do you nowadays, it's so hard on volunteer firefighters because it's not the 50s where you just show up when they blow the siren. We're training our people in every aspect of the fire service nowadays, and we're doing fundraisers and meeting nights and drill, you know, and then you look at a couple of the guys who said, yeah, okay, I'll be an officer, and they're all trying to manage those particular areas as well as their personal lives. So for the people bringing the ideas in, you know, sometimes you got to go, I'm throwing it out there and we're going to go with it and see what happens. And sometimes you got to go, oh, okay, well, wait. And I've been there, John, you know, where I've had some incredibly great ideas. I go, why won't they listen to me? Then later in life, I get promoted and I go, now I understand. So sometimes, again, guys, it's, you know, striking that balance I said earlier between what's too much, what's too little, what can we accomplish, what has to wait. Sometimes it's a matter of assigning a day and a time to it because we can't do it this fiscal year. Or guys, this project puts us in front of this project that we haven't finished yet. Sometimes it's going to be part 2 and part 3 of something that's already started or something that's already in the works. So to everybody out there, I guess I would say, go to the classes, go to the programs, you know, read the articles, get on the websites, look for ways to improve your fire department. You know, we started in 1736 with Ben Franklin, and we've come a hell of a long way, man. Crazy ass ideas have turned out to things we use every single day and don't even think about.
Got us to where we are today.
Encourage those ideas.
The only other point I want to make is that, and we did briefly talk about it, this is really very much a company officer / chief officer. This is an officer issue. How you manage this, how you manage people's ideas, how you accept them, how you receive them, how you tell people no in a nice way, you know, because sometimes the answers are eventually no. Sometimes the ideas are like, absolutely not. We're not painting all the rigs green. No, not happening. You know what I'm saying? Like, but you very rarely have to deal with this as a firefighter, even a senior firefighter, even a chauffeur. But once you become an officer, suddenly you're the guy. Hey, Lieutenant. Hey, Captain. Me and Billy were just talking down in the kitchen. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. And I don't say that. I'm thinking that, you know. So it's something else for you to think about. You know, we do a lot of officer training and company officer academy, and we pay a lot of attention to that. This is another issue in the company officer realm, in the company officer arena, that you have to think about. You're going to be how to deal with your people when they come up with ideas, you know, for the firehouse, for the stairway, for the pole hole, or for the rig, you know.
Oh, the same bosses that say, nothing changes. These guys don't want to do nothing here. They don't really are the same ones. Sometimes they don't even realize they're stifling some of the great ideas. So
let's end it with that saying that Bruno had a saying about that, right? There's two things that five. What is it? There's
two things that firefighters hate the most: change and the way things are.
Change and the way things are.
It's true. So hey, to everybody out there, you know what? Whether you're a boss, you're a firefighter, a new guy, you know, encourage the ideas, bring your ideas up, find a system, whether it's a suggestion box, a means, a method for people to bring up ideas. Sometimes you may not want to, you know, feel comfortable doing it in the big department meeting or shift meeting or at roll call. Sometimes it's a knock on the door. Hey, chief, you got a second? Why don't we have 100-foot hose? I mean, you know, I've said it before, some of our craziest ideas have come from some of our newest people. Give it a chance to listen, encourage your people. At the same time, on the other side, guys, remember there's a lot of stuff going on that you don't know sometimes. So both sides of that table, the idea people and the people that have the ability to say yes or no, have to come together and work on that stuff. So seek input from your people, encourage your people, get those great new ideas. You know, for those that are like, some of us have 3 horses out in front of us, and some of us have 1,000 horses out in front of us. You know, it's about finding the pace that you need, whether it's the 1,000 running in front of you or the 3, to be able to get things done. So keep the ideas coming, keep the fire service moving. You know, I always say it, I think firefighters are some of the most progressive people I know. We say it, John, right? You have a problem, you give it to a firefighter, it's done. They will
Stop it at
fix.
the kitchen table. There'll be a solution in a half an hour.
That's it. They'll fix anything we give them. They'll come up with any idea. There's some of the smartest, most progressive people I know. You know, we got to be one team, come together, work through our ideas. You know, we talk about there's 3 points to a goal when you come up with a goal. One is the initial thought. 2 is when you write it down to add clarity. And 3 is when you actually take action on it. All 3 of those have to be there. The idea has to be up in your head. You have to write it down to add clarity, and then you have to take action on it, or you will never finish it. So, hey, buddy, another good one. If they want to get a hold of you, what's the best email? We always talk about this.
ChiefJohnSalka@gmail.com.
And I'm Chief Lasky at gmail.com. Go hit us there or go to our websites. They're pretty easy to find. We hope we'll see you at FDIC, organizing the Fireground after hours and the 3 Degrees of Mayday, or just see you just for a cup of coffee or visit, come by the book booth. We're hoping you see April's right around the corner, believe it or not. It's going to be here before we know it. We got holidays coming up. We want everybody to be safe, take care of each other. We always end all of our shows with a very important phrase, and that's please keep the men and women of armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And remember, never forgetting means just that, never forgetting. Thank you, be safe, and God bless you.
Bye-bye.